The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation promotes, preserves, and perpetuates music, culture, and heritage through programs, cultural, educational, and economic activities year-round. Learn more at jazzandheritage.org. This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurant, arts, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Poppy Tooker, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. Hey, Miss Poppy.
Hello, Peg.
Hello. He's back. Anwar Basir, Executive Director of the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra, who will be previewing some upcoming season programming. Good to see you,
Good
kiddo.
to see you as well.
Hello. Alan Smason, editor of the Crescent City Jewish News and TheaterCriticism.com. Hi.
Hey.
And making his Steppin Out debut, we are so excited. Artist, urban planner, the list is actually very long, Robert Tannen, who has a new exhibit on view at the Ohr-O'Keefe Museumin Biloxi. And Bob was also very much involved with the 1984 World's Fair. And over the next few months, we at WYES are looking back at the fair's legacy. Welcome, Bob. Hello. Hi.
Thank you.
Poppy, some summer sippin'?
Well, some more celebration. The National Pims Cup Day is going to happen for the first
Sure.
time. It has been proclaimed for Monday, July 1st. Of course, this is all taking place at the Napoleon House. You know, the Napoleon House is actually, other than the bar in London, the #1 user of Pims in the world. The bar in London that invented the drink in the first place. This is a British thing. But anyway, so we've got all the setups here because thanks to Uncle Joe Impostata all those years ago, that drink has become synonymous with the Napoleon House. So on Monday at 11 a.m., Napoleon Bonaparte himself is going to be making the proclamation. There's going to be a champagne sabering, and they're going to be giving out samples of their frozen Pims Cup, because they've been doing all sorts of things with Pims Cups. For instance, here I have the non-alcoholic version of the Pims Cup, and it's because they use Louie Louie, which of course is one of those hemp-derived CBD, THC seltzer drinks. Louie Louie created this one, a ginger cucumber, to taste like a Pims Cup, and good old Ralph went right along with it. So there's a non-alcoholic version. Don't miss the fun. I want to see Napoleon Bonaparte on Monday, don't you?
And so these are different flavored Pims Cups?
No, these are all Pims Cups.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
no, it's just we have the regular Pims Cups, the non-alcoholic, and then there's also the frozen Pims Cups.
Okay.
And so anyway, that's what's
How
happening
fun.
on
Very good.
Monday. Now, on Saturday night, we are going to be saying goodbye to Tony Mandina's restaurant, a 42-year family affair on the West Bank in Gretna. And you know, look at that picture of Tony. It says it all. Tony was a manager at the Kirschman's Furniture Store when the property became available, and he sweet-talked his family into opening up this restaurant. Grace and her sisters ran the operation. There's Grace and Tony today. So they'd come in after Tony had come in at 5 a.m. and baked the bread and made the red gravy and the coochie dottie. Well, it's sad to be losing Tony Mandina's, but you know what? Nobody has to miss a beat, because Colette and I wrote the cookbook together. After just a couple of years ago, we wrote the cookbook. All the recipes are in the book except for the red gravy. And the red gravy is available in grocery stores everywhere. And so if you're missing that last meal, because my message here is, don't go. I was there last night, and they're totally full, and they're so kind. People are waiting. Don't give them more trouble. buy the cookbook, buy the red gravy, and make it yourself at home. And a little hint, that spot is going to be Venetia's.
Wow, that's good
Venetia's is
scoop.
going to expand to Gretna. Now we're going to talk about places where you can eat. And one of the places you can eat these days, serving dinner 7 nights a week, 5 until 10 p.m., Cane and Table, one of those Neil Bodenheimer projects in the French Quarter. And after all, the New York Times named them recently one of the best 25 restaurants in New Orleans. And it's because of things like a hurricane and table. You know, you want a hurricane, for goodness sake, go have a fresh version at Cane and Table. They're known for their cocktails like Where's the Dill? But my buddy, who I love, Chef Fredo Neguero, is responsible for the menu there, and the food is delicious. You can have the fish rundown, which is fried drum with crab meat and coconut curry. They have a grilled culotte steak that is out of this world. And they're also serving a jerk duck leg. That's at the top of my list. And of course, for dessert, a rum cake. So go to Cane and Table. You will not regret it. And another wonderful place that you should eat these days is Palm and Pine. Happy birthday to Palm and Pine. They are celebrating 5 years on Tuesday, July the 2nd. Oh. And you can go to their party and help them celebrate from 7 till 10 that night. And everyone should really consider Palm and Pine's VIP jams. They're doing all these fun collaborations. Like, for instance, they're going to have a collab with Que Pasta Nola coming up on Thursday the 11th. You can take a Mexican vacation with them on July 17th when there'll be only 14 seats around the counter at a Mexican vacation feed me dinner. And then July 24th, they got a spirited dinner as part of Tales of the Cocktail with Fortaleza Tequila coming up. And that's my last word of the day is Tales of the Cocktail. There's Amaris and Jordan, the chef couple, who that's their brainchild. Okay. Tales of the Cocktail is coming, so get ready.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Bob has so much stuff going on. We had to actually give him not one, but 2 segments on 2 totally different topics. But first of all, congratulations on your exhibit at the Ohr-O'Keefe Museum. You and your good friend, Frank Gehry, who, of course, is one of the world's best-known architects, and the amphitheater, the World's Fair Amphitheater, was one of just a part of an overall series of work. But you're having a dual exhibit at the museum, and your life has been, I'm just so intrigued, and we're going to show some footage from both exhibits. But Bob, you sometimes use just everyday objects to put together a message, and the message is really about the environment, isn't it?
The environment and the economy and what's happening in the world. I painted all of the objects I had in the house that were made in China red. Including a computer that was not being used anymore.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
So
let's go. We're going to go to the video. Here we go. And this is Frank Gehry first.
Yeah.
But you'll be seeing. Look at the red. There you go. The red phones.
Those were all at one time functional projects, and that's the Ohr-O'Keefe. That's the model of the Ohr-O'Keefe Museum,
which was designed by Frank Gehry.
5 buildings, and it's the exhibit here today is almost like a retrospective of his work. It's his work from when he was a child. He has a ceramic piece that he made as a child. And Frank and I have known each other for more than 40 years. And it was because Dutch Morial had a problem with a project that Frank was doing in Lafayette Square. And that's when I got to know Frank. I tried to convince Dutch that was a reasonable project, and there was no way that was going to happen.
Unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, there's only 10 days left to this exhibit, so you've really got to go, and there's your
He's 95 years old now. He's still producing projects all around the world.
Bilbao, the Disney Center.
We've maintained our relationship and decided to have this show together. Some of the things I do and some of the things he does are in the show separately as well as together.
Wow. And we should say, and once again, as I said, the list is long in terms of all of the incredible contributions you and your wife, Jean. Let's give her some credit on this, too, including the Contemporary Arts Center.
Correct.
There really wasn't a space for contemporary work. You all found it, with some friends, of course, too, at what used to be a K&B ice cream factory on Camp Street, and very much spearheading the neighborhood. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the World's Fair, but amazing to me. But we'll talk more about the World's Fair in just a few minutes, but congratulations on your show. Just 10 days left, and go and check it out. But I love the idea of the found objects, and you don't want, in reading a little bit about your vision, you don't want people necessarily to adorn their house with your artwork. You want them to think about stuff.
Yeah,
and I love
but
that.
also to have examples for in the house. It'd
Yes.
be nice to have a former bottle of Russian vodka painted red
Love that.
on the bar.
Okay, right. Thank you, Bob. And moving over to Anwar, so exciting. A new season coming up at the beautiful Ohr-O'Keefe Theater. Tell us about a few things you're looking forward to.
Yeah, thank you for having me, but I'm really
Sure.
excited about opening night. Always a reason to celebrate when we, take a little bit of a break over the summer and we come back in full force with some of the most beautiful music that's ever been written for an orchestra, where the main work is Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, which I think everyone knows and loves. But there's a little bit of an Easter egg in there as well, for the piece that's in the middle is A Sorcerer's Apprentice by Dukas. Most of us associate that piece of music with Fantasia, with the with the hat, which is really wonderful. Most people don't hear it live. They only experience that with the film. So being able to hear that live with a full orchestra is going to be really wonderful. And we're opening the program with a Louisiana-based composer, Brian Raphael Neighbors, his Pulse. So we're really putting the Louisiana back into our name and making sure that we're uplifting the artists right here from this region.
And Matthew Kramer, the principal conductor, will be at the helm that night.
Absolutely. Our wonderful music director is going to be leading that program. This is his second season here. He and his family have been having a good time here in New Orleans, so we're really thrilled to have him kicking off the season.
Well, speaking of Easter eggs, though, you also have a new composition called Pulse.
Yes.
Coming up that night, too.
That
on
is.
the
So, we're
12th.
going to open it with, last season we opened it with a piece of new music, and we wanted to continue that tradition as well.
Good idea.
Matthew really champions, make sure that we're championing living American composers, and why not do one right here from Louisiana? So
Why not?
That's going to be great.
And then plus now music at the New Marigny and the North Shore series coming up shortly after. Huh?
Absolutely. So we want to branch out beyond the Orpheum Theater. That's our home, but we want to make sure that we're serving more facets of the community. So we're at the wonderful New Marigny Theater right at the corner of Mandeville and Marais, doing some music by Bach. Hina It's going to feature our wonderful principal flute, Jiwon Ryu, on the Bach. It's going to be a really wonderful evening, and we're going to take that program up to the North Shore to Covington as well.
And Terrence Blanchard's back.
Yes, Terrence Blanchard is back. So, we're going to be commemorating the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. It's a full evening-length work that he wrote to make sure that we're honoring the musical traditions here. So he's going to come and he's going to play along with the orchestra. It's going to be, like I said, a really full evening work that's going to be very, very moving.
And what people definitely need to know is you're very keen on outreach. You have an LPO Academy.
We do. We want to make sure that we're absolutely leaning in, making sure that we're building the next generation of not only musicians, but music lovers. So I know you can see some of our students there playing along with the orchestra at City Park. It's really one of the most wonderful things that I've ever seen in my life.
That's one of my favorite concerts in
it's
April.
really great. Yes.
Right at City Park in the Peristyle. Okay, so lpomusic.com.
You can get your subscription packages now.
Get those packages.
Yes, indeed. They start at $135. Very affordable.
That's not bad. And there's really not a bad seat in the house. And people just say that, but I know that. Okay, because I've been in a lot of the seats.
You've been
I'm
in a
proud
lot of the seats.
to brag about that. And Alan, I know you're excited. Kristen Chenoweth in November with the LPO.
With the LPO, yeah.
Woohoo! Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And moving on to Alan.
I missed her the last time she was the singer, so I'll be there, I hope.
Yeah.
Well, there's no doubt about it that my single most guilty pleasure of all the Stephen Sondheim shows is Assassins. It's a show that originally played off-Broadway at Playwrights Horizons for 73 performances from 1990 to 1991, just a couple of months. And in 2004, the Broadway cast, of course, bowed with our own New Orleanian by choice, Michael Cerveris, who won a Tony Award, his first, he has two now, for his performance as John Wilkes Booth. The NOLA Project also produced Assassins in 2008, and just this past fall, Rivertown Theaters had their turn with a show. But now, the company, a St. Bernard-based theater company that has been producing several years now, had some very interesting productions, including Sondheim's Company at the Hacienda Theater, now at Paris Road and St. Bernard Highway are presenting their version of Assassins. And in addition to Booth, played by Dale Wood, there are the other three presidential assassins: Charles Guiteau, who killed Garfield, played by Chris Arthur; Leon Czolgosz, who killed McKinley, played by Michael Brubaker; and Lee Harvey Oswald, who killed Kennedy, played by Darrell Poche, who's also, by the way, the balladeer. There's also a bunch of would-be assassins like Sarah Jane Moore and Lynette Squeaky Fromm, John Hinckley, Sam Bick, and Giuseppe Zangara. The conceit of the show is to have a proprietor who offers guns to each of the assassins or would-be assassins. Danny Rubio does a great job as the proprietor, starting off the show with the theme, Everybody's Got the Right. And the balladeer also introduces the ballads of Booth, Guiteau, and Czolgosz. In this scene, How I Saved Roosevelt, that you see there, members of the crowd recount how they prevented Giuseppe Zangara from killing FDR before he was sworn in while visiting Chicago. Zangara was such a poor shot that he ended up resulting in killing the mayor of Chicago instead, but it was still an assassination. And while he doesn't have a song of his own, Sam Bick, played by David Hinton, is an angry, downtrodden man who goes after Richard Nixon. Not also a great shot, Vieta Collins plays Squeaky Fromm. We don't really get to see her face here. It's not a great photo. She sings a great duet, though, with Bob Mandel as John Hinckley Jr. in Unworthy of Your Love, one of my favorite love songs by Sondheim. It's a love song sung to Jodie Foster and Charles Manson by these two. The show has a lot to offer. I give it very high marks. Peggy, I know it's not perfect, but it does do a fine job. You liked it, didn't you?
I was so impressed, and some really nice voices there. And you know, for somebody who's not familiar with the show, believe me, it's not like, oh, we just love assassins. It's not that at all.
No.
It's telling the very weird, you know, sometimes
a lot of it's tongue in cheek, and then some of it is, and then of course the Guiteau, who was absolutely crazy. You know, you find this out pretty quick.
That these,
Ricky Graham did a
here,
wonderful Charles Guiteau years ago with the NOLA Project.
But I thought, in terms of the production, it was very well done. And I think when you hear Parish Road and St. Bernard Highway, for somebody who lives in the middle of the city, it sounds like it's far. It's not far at all.
No, not far at all.
It's very easy to get to, and there's the Aquarius Cafe across the street. It's a nice little
not too far from Rocky and Carlos.
That's
too.
right by Rocky and Carlos. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, meanwhile, we'll be having our nation's birthday next week, so I wanted to remind everyone of the upcoming New Orleans Shakespeare rendition of Julius Caesar that'll be opening the week after that. Several of the roles traditionally played by men will be played by actresses, but I'm looking forward to seeing this very strong cast, and check it out, directed by Salvatore Manino. You'll see that at the New Orleans Shakespeare Festival. Again, we'll have a little bit more of a reminder about that in a review coming up, we hope, later on. St. John Theater, by the way, Peggy, is putting on their version of Sister Act. We just saw that. That's the show based on the Whoopi Goldberg movie of the same title. You can reserve your seats by calling or going online at St. John's Theater in reserve. And I have to let everybody know about a special performance. Jeremy Jordan, of course, everybody knows him from Newsies, and Frances Mayley McCann. They performed roles as Bonnie and Clyde. That was the role that Jeremy Jordan originated on Broadway back in 2022. It's a live stage performance that was captured on film, and it's now available for a download for a 3-day period over the course of the next approximate month or so. It'll be available. There are two options to purchase the streaming performance, either with or without ads, and this is the performance that Jeremy Jordan left Newsies for. He came back into the show later, of course, but he performed opposite Laura Osnes. This is, of course, Frances Mayley McCann, who did the role not too long ago in 2022, and previous to that, I believe, in 2017 in the West End. So check that out again. Jeremy Jordan, Frances McCann, $9.99 with ads, $14.99 without. BonnieClydeLive.com. Check it out. Lastly, it's not too late to start planning for July the 4th. Now, Peggy and I are both lovers of 1776. We are very happy to remind you that it's available on TV if you want. Most of the original Broadway cast was captured on film by director Peter Hunt, and it was written by Peter Stone with music and lyrics by Sherman Edwards. And you can buy the DVD if you want. The director's cut, by the way, is highly recommended. Or you can rent or purchase it for download via Apple TV, Google Play, or Vudu. Or if you want to see it with commercials, check out Turner Classics on July the 4th, Independence Day at 9:45. They will be playing it for your enjoyment.
All right, thank you so much. And back to Bob. In terms of your involvement with the fair, my understanding is that Peter Spurney, who is of course, the administrator of the fair, asked you and a group to try to figure out what can we do with certain buildings, the fair's legacy after the fair.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Most people are unaware that a good part of what was the fair is now part of the Warehouse District and the Arts District. The fair had a group of pavilions along the river, and we were able to get the Rouse Company. When I say we, I went to the Rouse Company,
Wow.
and the Rouse Company agreed to pay in advance.
And this is a company out of Maryland as opposed to Rouse
Correct.
Supermarket. Okay, okay, just FYI.
That Rouse Company
Right.
from Maryland
Yes.
put up $50 million cash of their own money to be able to secure the international pavilions for Riverwalk.
And make it
following
permanent,
the fair.
build it in a permanent
Make it permanent.
manner. Huh? Yeah.
So they made that deal, and very few fairs have been able to put together deals for their survival afterwards, where buildings will be used rather than torn down.
So you got
most
them
fairs,
together.
Most fairs, they tear everything out, and we kept what was able to be kept.
Well, you surprised me because in a previous conversation you told me that the Wonderwall was something else that you all were looking at. Beautiful photo by Mitchell
Yeah.
Osborne here. To try to keep that, that was to disguise the power lines?
Well, it was
Kinda.
actually to create a reason for visiting the convention center. It was an artwork designed primarily by Charles Moore, an architect from the West Coast. But the Wonderwall itself, while it didn't have the kind of permanent structure, was an introduction to the architecture of the region in the form of the Wonderwall, and it was just a great piece of art.
Yeah, I'm sorry it couldn't have stayed
But
up.
the Perez firm, the architectural firm, Perez firm, led the effort to plan the World's Fair, and I worked with them primarily on buildings and parts of the fair that could be kept and made permanent.
And Charles Moore was involved too,
Charles
wasn't
Moore
he?
was directly involved. He was the designer of the Wonderwall.
Of the Wonderful. We have such great memories of it. I have a piece of it in my backyard. It's a little piece though.
No,
but
this fair had probably more permanent improvements to the neighborhood that were the result of the fair than most World's Fairs.
Well, let's say the Arts District. We were just
Yes.
talking about the Contemporary Arts Center. Look at that magnificent building. And that was beginning, but it was really solidified, the whole neighborhood,
Yes.
by the fair, the legacy, don't you think?
Yes, definitely. And the Contemporary Arts Center was founded and created in 1976, prior to the World's Fair, and helped that neighborhood become what we know it to be today, with apartments and restaurants and hotels.
I mean, it was almost slum-like, some parts of that neighborhood, and not anymore. Julia Street, woo!
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And
Lots to be proud of.
But what's there now is a very strong neighborhood that has multiple reasons for being successful.
Well, as I said, we could spend the whole evening talking with you because you've been so involved with so many things. I had not realized, well, I knew about the Rouse connection, but also the whole idea of where to put the arena.
Yeah.
You had a lot to do with that.
The arena as opposed to the amphitheater.
Smoothie King.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
There was an empty lot behind the Superdome, and people were talking about putting an arena across the street and in a park or elsewhere, maybe in New Orleans East or in Jefferson Parish. But that lot behind the Superdome turned out to be just big enough for the kind of arena we were looking for. And I studied arenas around the country, and the Anaheim Arena in California fit that site as an example of using an existing arena and having the arena next to the Superdome has proved to be a very important
Parking,
combination.
Air conditioning, all of the above.
Yes.
Incredible. And let me, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going out of order here, but let's back up. You mentioned the amphitheater, of course, too. Your friend, Frank Gehry, had a little
Yeah.
something to do with that. And I know we all lament the fact that it wasn't permanent.
Well, it was not designed to be permanent, unfortunately. And in fact, the Rouse Company wanted to use that space for retail development. So it was difficult to combine.
Right.
It, looking back at it now, perhaps it could have been done at another location. And we're still thinking about locations for amphitheaters on the river. I know there are discussions up and down the river, not only in New Orleans, but also in Jefferson Parish.
Oh, great news. And we're going to have to move on, but just to also say that you were thinking about IMAX before the IMAX at the aquarium. There was one at Canadian Pavilion.
The Canadian Pavilion.
Yeah, so you were very involved with that. I'm telling you, the list is long. It's so great to have you. Thank you. And now time, though, for our picks. Poppy?
Two of my favorite people in the world, Isaac and Amanda Toops, need our help because they have committed to feed hungry children this summer, and they are putting out thousands of meals every week. There's a fundraiser Sunday from 5 until 9 p.m. at the Broadside, $40 suggested donation, and it's going to be great. The Creole String Beans and Louis Michaud and the Lost Bayou Ramblers.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Couple of options to see some musical moments on Disney Plus. First is the new 2-hour documentary on the Beach Boys, which is told in their own words. And of course, in time for Independence Day, you cannot forget about Hamilton with the original Broadway cast on stage, not throwing away their shot. Hamilton has options for streaming starting at $7.99, and I'll see you at the theater.
All right. And quickly, my picks, too. University of Costa Rica professor Martin Matarrita and Nicholas Cooker will be performing with the Pentalba Chamber Players on Sunday at 3 p.m. at St. Matthew's United Church of Christ, focusing on music of Central America, South America, and Spain. Stephen Edwards conducts. Free, but if you want to donate, that's fine, too. The St. John the Baptist Library in Reserve, Louisiana, will have a grand opening with tours on Monday at 3 p.m. It's called the Leroy D. Williams Memorial Library. They have a cafe and even podcast rooms. Chapel Heart and other groups will be performing at Lafreniere Park on July 3rd. UncleSamJamJefferson.com for schedule. And on the same day at City Park, beginning at 6, with more casual music than at 7, the Marine Corps Reserve Band will present a patriotic concert on the Gold Ring Waldenberg lawn with fireworks, of course, at 9 p.m. And also at 9 p.m. that evening, WYES will present a half-hour program called Opportunities, Restoring the Louisiana Coast, hosted and produced by Marcia Cavanaugh. Fireworks on the Mississippi, starting at 9 on the 4th. Everything seems to be at 9, okay? And from the 4th through the 7th, the 30th annual Essence Fest will take place mostly at Caesars Superdome and then at the Fillmore, New Orleans. Due to July 4th related programming, we will see you next time on July the 11th. Thank you all very much. Happy 4th. Good night.
Happy 4th.
Thank you.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation promotes, preserves, and perpetuates music, culture, and heritage through programs, cultural, educational, and economic activities year-round. Learn more at jazzandheritage.org. This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.